My name is Anna Petrova. I am 29 years old, and until recently I had a successful business in the field of internet marketing. For 6 years, I practically supported my entire family on my own, paid their mortgage, utility bills, in a word, everything. I grew up in Ryazan, in a house where there was always money because my parents did not know how to manage it at all. My father, Grigory, now 53, never held a job for more than a year and a half. He would get a job, prove himself at first, and then either quit over some imaginary grievance or be fired for numerous absences. The one thing he never missed was a weekly card game with friends, after which he usually returned home cursing his failure. My mother, Katerina, 51, compensated for her unhappiness with unbridled shopping. By the time I was in high school, she had a dozen credit cards, almost all maxed out. Her closets were overflowing with clothes with the price tags still on them, while she complained that we didn't have the money for my so-called adult responsibilities whenever I dared question their spending. By the time I was 17, I was working after school at a local grocery store, all the while getting straight A's. I understood responsibility better than they ever did. My younger brother, Ivan, now 27, followed in his father's footsteps. He dropped out of college after the first semester, declaring that entrepreneurs don't need degrees. My sister Svetlana, 25, was my mother's protégé. Beautiful and charming, she learned early that daddy's tears and complaints usually get her what she wants. When things didn't go her way, she would boycott me for weeks. I was the anomaly in our family, the only responsible one. I worked every summer and after school for a year, applied for every scholarship I could, and was able to get into a state university with only a minimal loan. I graduated with a degree in business while working 3 jobs, a barista in the morning, a teaching assistant during the day, and a waitress on the weekends. The summer after graduation, I got a job as a marketer at a local agency. I worked there for 2 years, living very modestly and saving every penny, while my colleagues bought new cars and went on exotic vacations. In the evenings and on weekends, I built my own client base by building websites and managing social media for small enough clients that I quit my day job and started my own marketing firm. Within 6 months, I was making more than both my parents combined, and that's when the requests started. It all started innocently enough. Mom needed help paying the electric bill because Dad had been laid off again. Then Dad's car broke down and they couldn't afford the repairs. I helped. That's what family does, isn't it? In the first year of my substantial business, I probably gave them about $250,000 in total. We're not small, but with my growing income, it was manageable. I even felt a sense of satisfaction in being able to help my family. The second year, everything changed. My father lost his job again, and they were in debt on their mortgage. My mother called me, sobbing into the phone, saying they might lose the house I grew up in. "We've tried everything, Anshka. You're our only hope," she pleaded. I took on their monthly mortgage payment of 10 to 100,000 rubles, convincing myself that it was only a temporary measure. By the third year, the temporary had become permanent. Now I was paying their mortgage, utilities, and car insurance. When Ivan came to me with his idea for a footrack, I couldn't say no. He seemed so excited, so convinced that this was his big break. The 1.36 ruble investment disappeared within 4 months, leaving nothing behind but a half-painted van until it was sold for scrap. The 4th year brought Svetlana's wedding. She got engaged to a nice guy who worked in sales, but he couldn't afford the dream wedding she had been planning since she was a child. When my mother called and asked if I could help, I asked for an estimate. The sum of 500 rubles made me choke on my morning coffee, more than reasonable for a modest wedding these days. My mother insisted. In the end, I paid for everything, from the venue to the honeymoon in Bali. In the 5th year, my father needed emergency gallbladder surgery, although he had basic insurance from his new job. The deductible was high. I covered his medical bills on all counts and bought him a used car when his old one finally broke down. My mother's shopping habits got worse, and I found myself paying off her credit cards to keep their credit score from collapsing completely. By year 6, last year, I was supporting my entire family. My parents hadn't paid their mortgage in 4 years. I covered all their utilities. I paid Ivan's rent after his third roommate kicked him out for non-payment. I helped Svetlana with her car loan payment when she decided she needed a brand new SUV despite not having kids. In total, I was spending more than 365 rubles a month on my family while trying to grow my business. The gratitude that had been there the first year had long since evaporated. My help was not appreciated. It was expected as a given. When I failed to immediately wire money for an emergency, Svetlana's sale at an expensive boutique didn't speak to me for days. When I suggested my father look for a more stable job, my mother accused me of calling him a loser. After everything we've done for you became her constant refrain, though I couldn't remember what they'd done, other than provide the legal minimum when I was a child. I missed vacations with friends because my money was tied up in everyone else's lives. I worked 60 hours a week to maintain the income needed to support 5 adults. Deep down, I knew it was wrong, but every time I thought about cutting back, I felt guilty. Family takes care of family, my mother said, and I believed her, though the care seemed to pull in only one direction. At first I thought it was the alarm on my phone going off, but the shrill sound was too insistent, too alarming. When I opened the bedroom door, thick black smoke immediately brought me to my knees. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of a converted old mansion. I chose it precisely because the spacious front room was ideal for a homemade Fidia Vattersboy on wood. Now these same vintage features turned it into a powder keg. I crawled into the bathroom, wet a towel with water and covered my face. Through watery eyes, I saw orange flames flickering under the door. Leading to the hallway, the fire did not start in my apartment. I later learned it had started in the kitchen of a downstairs neighbor when she fell asleep with oil on the stove, but it was spreading quickly. My escape route was the fire escape outside my bedroom window. I grabbed my laptop bag, stuffed my passport, birth certificate, an external hard drive with client backups. I pocketed my phone and charger, pulled on the shoes by the bed, and climbed out onto the metal platform. The night air was cool on my smoke-hot skin. From the fire escape, I watched in horror as the beautiful old building was consumed by flames. Down on the lawn, neighbors gathered, some crying, others filming on their phones. Fire trucks arrived with sirens blaring, but it was already clear that they would not be able to save the building, only prevent the fire from spreading to neighboring buildings. A fireman helped me down the last flight of stairs, asking if I was hurt beyond mild smoke inhalation and the shock coursing through my body. Physically, I was fine. Emotionally, that was another story. I stood on the sidewalk for hours, wrapped in a Red Cross blanket, watching my home and office burn to the ground. By morning, all that remained was a charred skeleton of blackened wood and collapsed beams. The firefighters confirmed what I already knew. Everything inside was destroyed. My furniture, clothes, family photos, work equipment, paper files. The first blow came when I contacted my insurance company. I had renter's insurance, but it turned out the building owner had not renewed his policy 3 months ago. My coverage was minimal without a landlord policy to supplement it. The adjuster estimated that it would take weeks, possibly months, to process even the limited payout I might receive. I spent the first 3 nights in a hotel that cost between 10 and 70 rubles a night, an expense I couldn't sustain for long. My business, which operated mostly from a home office, was paralyzed without equipment. My savings had been depleted by years of family support, and my emergency fund had been depleted after buying my father a car last year. I had about 2,600 rubles left in my account, enough for maybe 2 weeks in a hotel and essentials, but not enough for a deposit on a new apartment while maintaining my family's financial needs. My friends, Maria and Timur, offered me a sofa for a couple of nights, but they were living in a tiny one-room apartment. I accepted the offer gratefully, not wanting to abuse their hospitality. By the 5th day after the fire, I was running out of options. And then I made a decision that seemed so obvious I was almost ashamed I hadn't thought of it sooner. After 6 years of supporting my family, paying their mortgage, bills, and more, surely they would help me get through the next few weeks until I got back on my feet. Her reaction was lukewarm at best. "Oh, that's awful, dear. I'm so sorry to hear that," she said, the sympathy in her voice belying her words. "You know, our spare room is being used as a storage room at the moment, and your father isn't feeling well. This is not a good time." I was stunned. It was not a good time, but I held my nerve. The lawn was manicured. The paint was fresh. 2 cars were in the driveway, all paid for by me. My mother opened the door, barely looked at me, and noticed. "Anya, you look tired." The contrast between the comfort of this house and my current situation made my throat clench. My father barely tore his eyes away from the TV I'd bought him for Christmas and threw it down. It was as if I had lost a bet rather than everything I had. I sat down on the couch and delivered my carefully prepared speech, explaining that I only needed temporary shelter for a few weeks. The silence that followed my request seemed to last an eternity. "Anya, you know we love you," my mother began, but she replied that my presence would disrupt my father's routine. There was plenty of room in their 4-room house, but there wasn't even a corner for me, and then she did it, she laughed. A short, dismissive laugh that cut me like a knife. "Don't be so dramatic, Anya. This isn't a shelter. You've always been resourceful. I'm sure you'll come up with something." At that moment, something inside me broke. 6 years of support, sacrifice, responsibility, and this is how they repaid me. "You realize," I said, my voice unnaturally calm, "that I've been paying the mortgage on this house for 4 years. My mother's face hardened. "This is different. We are your parents. We raised you." At that moment, Ivan walked in. Hearing what was going on, he frowned. "No way. I have all the gaming equipment there, and I'm hosting a tournament this weekend." I jumped up, shaking with rage and disbelief, and screamed, listing everything I'd been paying for 6 years: the mortgage, the bills, the cars, Ivan's failed business, Svetlana's wedding, my father's medical bills. I cried, tears streaming down my face. "I lost everything in that fire, everything, and you can't even offer." "Enough, Anya. If you helped us only to reproach us for it later, then maybe you should stop." "Maybe you should," I whispered. The last straw was the call to Svetlana. She expressed sympathy, but when I said I had asked my parents for blood, her tone immediately changed. "Well, I would offer our place, but you know how small it is." As I was leaving, I heard the most terrifying question from my mother. "You'll be sending your mortgage payment on the 1st of the month. We have a property tax bill coming up." I didn't answer. Sitting in a borrowed car in the rain, I cried. In that moment, parked outside the house I was paying for, I realized the devastating truth. To my family, I was an ATM, and ATMs don't need blood. That night in the car, I opened up the notes on my phone and started counting. Mortgage payments, utilities, car loans, Ivan's failed business, Svetlana's wedding, me off the screen, almost 18 million rubles wasted. And what did I get in return? Not even a sofa when I had nothing left. At dawn, exhausted and hungry, I stopped at a 24-hour cafe. The waitress, a woman of about 50 with a RACA badge, brought me coffee and, having studied my face, asked sympathetically. It was a hard night. I, surprised by my own frankness, blurted out. "Yesterday my apartment burned down. I asked my family for help, but they refused after everything I did for them." RACA sat down in my booth. "Family can be worse than strangers sometimes," she said. "My brother did the same to me. I sent him money for years, and when I needed help, he was suddenly too busy. But you know what? It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It made me finally put myself first." That little conversation with a stranger who showed more compassion than my entire family was the final push. I paid the bill and drove to the nearest motel, where I rented a room for 2 weeks, using up most of my credit card's limit. In a small room with faceless paintings and a Pilster bedspread, I opened the columns in my house and listed all my financial ties to my family. My parents' mortgage, utilities, my father's car loan, my mother's credit card payments, Ivan's rent, Svetlana's car insurance. In another column, I wrote out the steps to sever each of these ties. A quick internet search revealed that since I wasn't a co-borrower on the mortgage, just making payments, I had no legal obligation to continue. The same went for utilities and Ivan's rent. A plan was taking shape. I started writing an email to my family. I rewrote it several times, trying to be tough, but I needed to be clear and firm. The final version was, Mom, Dad, Ivan, and Svetlana. After yesterday's conversation, I made a decision that has been brewing for a long time. From now on, I will stop providing you with any financial support. Over the last 6 years, I have given this family almost 18 million rubles. I paid for everything, from the mortgage to Ivana Day's failed business and Svetlana's wedding. Yesterday, when I came to you, having lost everything in a fire, you couldn't even offer me the house I was paying for. This made my place in this family crystal clear to me. I have already contacted all companies to remove my payment information. This is not revenge. Now I need to put myself first. Please do not contact me with requests for money. My decision is final, Anna. I did not send it immediately. Instead, I lay down and fell into my first deep, dreamless sleep since the fire. When I woke up a few hours later to my mother's missed calls, I didn't listen. I opened my laptop again, reread the email, and before I could change my mind, I clicked. Then I blocked all their numbers. A strange feeling came over me, not satisfaction or gloating, but conviction, pure, all-consuming conviction. I had nothing, but I felt lighter than I had in years. The next morning, I started with a visit to the bank. The manager, Yulia, knew me and had heard about the fire. I explained that I needed to close all my finances. She understood everything without further ado and helped me, and at my request, printed out statements with all my family's transfers for the last 6 years, just in case of legal action. All day long, I methodically called companies, mortgage, utilities, car loans. One by one, I cut off financial ties. With each call, each confirmation email, I felt more and more in control of my own life. My phone was ringing off the hook with calls and messages. The family discovered that my accounts had been blocked. I had not read them. The final step was to call a legal aid office, where they confirmed that I had done everything correctly and was not legally obligated to continue making payments that were voluntary gifts. That evening, I sent each family member a separate email with screenshots of bank statements documenting in detail the amounts they had received. No emotion, just numbers. Then I set up an autoresponder for email and phone. That night in the motel room, I felt a mixture of grief, anger, and anxiety, but underneath it all, there was a deep sense of release. I had less than 60 rubles in my new account, but for the first time in years, every ruble I earned would be mine to shoulder. It was finally starting to ease. By the time I woke up the next morning, I had missed calls. 23 of them were from my mother. Her first voicemails were angry. Anna, what are you doing? Call me back immediately. By mid-afternoon, her tone had changed to one of bewildered indignation. I don't understand why you're doing this. After everything we've done for you. The evening messages became tearful and manipulative. We can't pay the mortgage without you. Are we supposed to end up on the street? His father called 8 times, but left only 2 short, threatening messages. Ivan's messages became increasingly aggressive, ranging from panicked to drunkenly insulting. Svetlana was initially sympathetic, but quickly moved on to her own problems. My car payment is due next week, and then to accusations. I read them all but didn't respond. Each message only confirmed that I had made the right decision. They didn't want me, they wanted my money. Meanwhile, I had my own problems to solve. I bought a simple laptop and turned the public library into my office. For hours, a local print shop owner named Daria overheard me talking to a client about losing my home office. I have a spare office in the back of the shop, she said. You can use it until you get back on your feet. Maybe we can swap services. I need help with the site. Through her, I met Rada, the landlord. After hearing my story, she offered me a small one-room apartment at a price below market price. If you do it yourself, I'll cancel the deposit and lower the rent. This apartment, although tiny, became my refuge. I began to restore it, and Daria became not just a business partner, but a real friend. The calls from the family gradually stopped. A month after our breakup, my mother showed up at the printing house. Anna, finally, she said. We need to talk about this, I replied calmly. "Anna, you should talk to a financial advisor. Is that all you can say after everything we've done for you? And what exactly have you done for me, Mom? When I lost everything and needed blood, you laughed in my face. It was a misunderstanding." "No," I said firmly, "this was the moment of truth. I gave you everything, and when I needed the bare minimum in return, you showed me my true place. I am not punishing you, I am taking care of myself. You are adults. Sort it out yourselves like I had to." I said goodbye and asked her not to come again. When she left, I realized I was truly okay. A year after the fire, my apartment, which I painted in bold, cheerful colors and furnished with restored furniture, had become my true home. Daria and I had grown our office services, offering into a full-fledged marketing agency. The insurance payout, which was larger than I expected, allowed me to invest in a business, and my first weekly sessions with a therapist, Dr. Larissa, were key to my healing. She called what I had experienced financial abuse and helped me understand the complex emotions that had kept me trapped. "You didn't cause their problems," she often reminded me, "and you can't fix them." Little by little, I built a circle of true friends based on common interests and mutual respect. 6 months ago, I received a letter from my father. He briefly and awkwardly acknowledged their mistakes, wrote that they were learning to stand on their own 2 feet, and that Ivan had been holding on to his job for 4 months, a new record. He didn't ask for forgiveness or money. I didn't answer, but I kept the letter. It felt like a chapter had been closed. I had recently met Boris, the owner, with compassion, without judgment or suggestion. Forgive me, forget. His support was healthy, a partnership of equals, not a one-way stream of victims. On the anniversary of the fire, I sat on a viewing platform overlooking the valley. I had lost my apartment and my possessions, but I had gained self-respect, true friendships, and a sense of my own worth. The fire had destroyed my home, but it had illuminated a truth I needed to see. Sometimes losing everything is the only thing that matters.